Custom properties provide an easily accessible way to control other values within Blender. You can usually assign several different animations to one property for simplicity's sake. I'll go through what that means during the course of the lecture. Custom properties can be assigned to objects, armatures and individual bones. The caveat with this, however, is that these said objects, armatures or bones need to be clicked on and active before the custom properties can be made visible. Custom properties share a close relationship with drivers, though they're not dependent on them. When creating a custom property, you copy the data path into the driver in order for it to work. Okay, on the right hand side here, you have a switch that says Scale and Rotate Suzanne, and you have a number. If you used to click and adjust this here, this is your custom property that we've been talking about. You'll notice that as you change it, Suzanne basically rotates and scales depending on the setting here. The start file we're going to be using is exactly the same as the previous lecture, and that's the Suzanne start.blend. Okay, so as I said in the introduction then, we have Suzanne on the screen in front of us here. I'm just going to basically add a new empty to begin with on the right hand side here. We'll just do the plane axes, and that's what we're going to be assigning the custom properties to. So what we'll do is we'll just rename this object to custom properties as such, like that. So the way it works, if you go to the Objects Data panel on the right hand side here, and at the very bottom you'll see an option here that says Custom Properties. If you expand that, you get the little Add button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this little panel so it's above the Transform panel there. Then click on Add, and you'll see a new custom property, as it's called, within the list here. At the moment it's just called Prop, and it doesn't do anything. Even if you change the value, it just doesn't do anything at all. You do get this option here, it says Edit. When you click on Edit, you get these options. To begin with, you probably won't understand what these actually mean, but essentially what this boils down to is you've got the property name. Now, the property name can be anything you want it to be. What we first need to define is what this property needs to do. So let's just cancel out this. I'll just click OK, it doesn't matter. So we want this custom property to do two things. For example, if we adjust the custom property, we want the Suzanne to basically stretch up and rotate like that. So we want the one custom property to do two jobs. So what we need to do is go back to the empty here with the custom properties, and on here what we'll do is we'll click on Edit, and in the name section let's just give it something descriptive. So we'll call it something simple as Scale Rotate Suzanne. Okay, and you get two values here. You've got the property value and you've got the default value. The property value is basically the value that the animator sees, if you like, or can adjust. Then you have the default value, which is basically where it says default. Now, the minimum and maximum values here, they define exactly how down or how far up the property can be. So if you set it to sort of say negative, I don't know, negative 100, for example, the animator can set it to basically negative 100 to, well, 1 in this case, if you don't want to change it. This is library overrideable, basically boils down to when you start linking and appending your sort of rigs and objects into other scenes within Blender. Generally, if you're going to be linking sort of custom properties, I'd recommend just enabling that checkbox, or if you're not sure what I mean, just get into the habit of checking it by default. Use soft limits here. Basically, when you slide values like this in Blender, you probably notice that you can slide them up and down like that, as such, like that, using the mouse and just click and drag. What soft limit basically does, if you click on that and you set it to 0.5, for example, you can click and drag the value on the property value here. So let's just click OK, and then obviously put it down to 0 and then just slide up, and you'll see it stops at 0.5 regardless of how far up you're dragging the mouse cursor. If you want it to go as far as 1, you'd have to click into it and then type in the 1 manually like that, as such. So let's just click on Edit here, and I'm going to leave the soft limit there and just set it to say 10, just for saying sake, and then we'll set the maximum to say 100. Now the tooltip is just basically the information that comes up in the pop-up box when you hover over the custom property. So I'd always recommend putting something in there to guide the animator. So for example, even though it's descriptive by the property name anyway, it's not always so obvious. But in here we'll just say Scales and Rotates Suzanne. Something like that. Then after all that, click on OK. You'll notice as well that when you finish with the custom property, you've got the name here, you've got the value, and you've got the edit, and if you want to remove the custom property, you can do so there. But if you look under the transform panel here, if you expand the properties here, it also shows up there as well. So you're able to adjust, or you're able to sort of access the custom property from basically these two locations. The caveat, like I said at the introduction here, if you click on Suzanne, the custom property gets hidden, it goes away. So you must click on the object here before the custom property, in this particular case, will show up. So if you remember, we want to scale and rotate Suzanne at the same time. So let's just start with the scaling first. We'll scale it along the Z-axis here. So what we'll do is we'll add a driver. As before, go in the drivers editor. Click on the Z scale driver there to make sure it's all shown up. And in the expression bar, if you remember, always get into the habit of just getting rid of any fluff in the expression here. Just type in VAR like that. You'll notice in the viewport that she's now flat as a pancake. Don't worry about it. Now this is where things get interesting. If you remember on the previous lecture, we set up the objects to an actual objects in the viewport, but we don't want to do that this time. We want to set up a custom property instead. So under this little drop down here, you want to change that to a single property. You'll get a prop, the objects. You know, the objects needs to be where basically the custom property exists, if you like. So in this case, it's going to be the empty, or rather the custom property's empty object there as such. Blender will ask you for a path. Now what you need to do, let's just move the driver editor out the way for a moment here and click on the empty. What you need to do is right click on the custom property value here and you want to look for this, copy data path. You can also do Control-Shift-C. Okay, then click on Suzanne and then in the path, just click into it and type in Control-V and then press enter. And you'll notice straight away that Suzanne in this particular case has basically jumped back to the correct size, if you like. So now what you can do, let's just minimize the driver window here, click on the empty. If you was to click on the custom property and move it up and down as such like that, you'll see that she basically flattens out like a pancake and it'll carry on going up and up forever like that. Perfect. But we also want it to rotate as well. So what we can do is if you click on Suzanne again and we'll have it rotate on the Zulu axis. So let's add a new driver. Again, showing drivers editor, I'll just bring it back up here. And you notice on the left hand side as well, you also get the second option now. This is usually represented by a green curve on the second kind of line, if you like. So what we'll do is I'll just hide the Z scale there. Make sure you've got Z Euler rotation clicked on the left and just press the period key to reset the curve. In the expression, just type in VAR. Now if you remember, we need to change the type here from what it is currently, which in this I think it's transform channel, and set it to single property. Again, you want to set it to the empty custom properties objects here, and again paste in the path. Because it's the same exact custom property we're using, we can just paste what we've already copied as such like that. And then if you just minimize it again, click on the empty and then just carry on here, you can see it working. So as the custom property increases, the Suzanne will rotate and scale at exactly the same time. And there's your soft limit of 10 that we set up. So if you wanted to carry on to say, I don't know, 50 for example, you'd have to enter it manually as such like that. It's just intended to stop the animator from kind of accidentally rushing or setting it up so it's miles and miles ahead. There's one thing to bear in mind with these custom properties. I've just set it back to 1 for a moment. With custom properties, if you click on edit here, you can only edit custom properties on the actual sort of right hand side panel here. At the moment, it's set up as what's called a floating number, which basically means you can set it up at any number between 0 and 1, or rather it can be any number, anything with a decimal point essentially. So it could be 0.1, it could be 1.5, it could be 3.9, it could be 4.6. You get the idea, hopefully. If you turn this into an integer number, so for example, if you type in here just 1 without the decimal point and change the same for the default value there as well, then click on OK. You'll notice here that it has become what's called an integer, and you can only change this in steps like that. So now this becomes handy in certain situations, especially with Boolean options. I found options where you need it in either one state or another. They're very good at just setting it between 0 and 1, for example, as such like that. So there are two options you do have at your disposal. If you want to set it back to floating point, all you got to do is just add this decimal point and 0 in there as well, as such, like that. Blender's very good at reading these like that. So again, that's just back to the way it should be. So that basically defines custom properties. Again, you can set them up to bones as well. If you're going to set them up in bones, just be mindful that you need to set it up on the bone panel on the right hand side here. In fact, I might as well show you. Let's just add a new armature. Go into edit mode and just bring it to the right here. In objects mode, I'm just going to reset all transforms and go into pose mode. So you need to set any custom properties. If you click on the bone, click on the bone panel here, and the custom properties again are at the bottom. So this is something else to be mindful of as well. If you set up a custom property on the bone panel here, it has to be under the bone panel there. You can't sort of click on the object data panel and expect them to be there. They always, wherever you set them up, that's where they always are, if you like. Okay, I'm going to delete that custom property there, and I'm just going to delete the armature as well because we don't need it. So we need to do that in object mode, and I'm going to leave that as is with the empty there. So I think that pretty much covers it as far as custom properties are concerned. So I'm going to save this as Suzanne Custom Properties. So custom properties can be used in a variety of different situations. The most useful I find for basically giving an animator a direct and easy control to say multiple facets to a rig. So for example, you may choose to have, if you're going to go like with wheels or something on the vehicle, you could have like all the wheels assigned to one custom property for whatever reason. Or if you need it to track on a temporary basis, you can set sort of the influence using a custom property as well. It just basically takes all the hidden settings within Blender and sticks them in one particular place. I think they're brilliant for that. In the next video, we're going to take a look at the conditional if function in Blender, which are used in conjunction with drivers again. They are very versatile and they do come in handy for many different things. So I look forward to trying to go through that with you in the next lecture.